Hi there, Tony. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, Marcus, good to be here.
So
Good to
this
be
is Tony Millroy. Tony has did, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I have no idea now when you did History 300, but you survived.
2018.
And then Tony has at different times taught into the course for me as a tutor, course coordinator, depending on whether I was dying or not, and that sort of thing. So he's a true believer in the course. So I have to, and I guess we have to acknowledge some level of bias here. I think it's a great course. I can say that because you told me multiple times. But Tony, tell us what you're doing now before we actually look at, the course itself.
Okay, right now I'm 18 months into a PhD at USC under Dr. Amy Clark and Professor Patrick Nunn, looking at the transitions of ideology in a colonial Queensland. How it was okay, how the ideology made it okay to introduce the Aboriginal protection and restriction of Opium Act, essentially. And that's a fascinating field and takes me back to 16th or 17th century Britain as for the roots.
Sounds rather theoretical.
It is.
So are you balancing? You're dancing between, because you've told me different times you're wading through documents of the period. So you're doing the research, but you're looking at it from an ideological point of view. What does that mean?
I've identified certain themes that I believe empowered the race problems that Queensland suffered. Themes of Stanner's Great Australian Silence, obviously. Themes of the tyrannies of time and distance, how far away everything was and how long it took for a message to get in between, which allowed for arbitrary action on the frontier. And themes of what I'm calling a gulf of incomprehension, how neither side could understand each other. So what I'm looking for is where these themes pop up in the discourse of the century.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, it is fascinating stuff, and this pops up in the weirdest places, in letters, in talking about awaiting or communications from the commandant of the Moreton Bay penal settlement awaiting barrels of wine for 3 months, and oh dear, they went on the wrong ship, and he finds out 3 months later, so that's a tyranny of time and distance, as an example. Comprehension, the attitudes that we're still seeing played out today in the arguments about the voice, about how long Aboriginal people have been here, what they did prior to the white invasion, things like that.
Okay. Wow, what a great thesis to be working on here. Well, it's fantastic. And it's great that you've got, both Patrick and Nunn and Amy Clark have got different skills, but they're really complementary. So it's a really good combo. So let's turn to History 300. So you did History 300 back in, you said 2018?
2018.
So how do you find the course overall, Tony?
I loved it. I loved every moment of it, because it was self-directed. There was no real modules. It was down to me to find the topic and the research, and that was guided, of course, by the tutor. I found it allowed me to dive down rabbit holes, which is a joy. And quite often you'll dive 8 feet down a rabbit hole and meet a historian saying, "Go away, this is mine," and that was a really important learning curve. You dive down the rabbit hole and it opens up a whole other field. I was researching the interregnum period between Joby Elka Peterson resigning and Wayne Goss winning the 1989 state election. So I was looking at the social conditions there, and the research was driven by, well, not driven, but everything focused on either the Fitzgerald inquiry or Expo 88. And so it was this sort of balance act in the research. It gave me free rein, and there was no, but most importantly, it taught me the structure of academic research, how to encapsulate a research proposal, how to, most importantly, and the big skill is writing a literature review, how to shape and make sense of a literature review. And once you get those two things done, the writing up of the project is relatively straightforward, because you have your reference points in the research proposal. This is what I'm going to talk about. In the literature review, this is what other people say about it, and now this is what I think about it. And that was wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, that's great. And I have to say that the assessments have changed, so we're not doing it exactly that way anymore.
Okay.
Just in case students are thinking, hang on, that doesn't sound like what Mark.
I hope there's still a literature review content.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's great. So you've talked about, the kind of freedom and everything that you experienced in the course, and it gave you that opportunity to go down the rabbit holes. Could you specify some things, specific things that you got out of the course?
Well, the skill of writing a literature review, obviously, and the theoretical underpinning that's necessary for a research proposal. If you can't include theory in your research proposal, then you're merely writing a chronicle.
Listen to that. That's really good. I think that's so true.
Yeah. So you have to be able to not make the theory fit, but find the theory that best highlights what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I use Weber, Weber's theory of bureaucracies and politics as a vocation.
Yep. Okay, great. So it sounds like you had such a good time. I'm wondering whether you struggled with any aspect of the course, Tony.
Yes, writing the literature review and encapsulating the research proposal. The writing of the essay was, as I say, straightforward once you jump those other hurdles. Yeah, so yes, I did struggle with the research proposal. It took a while to get my head around what was needed, and I read many masters and honours and PhD research proposals, trying to understand what the authors were trying to do, and then apply it to my situation.
So that obviously helped you a lot with your PhD so far, of course, that because the first step of the PhD is to really get your head around the literature. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's where, and the same with his 300. That's where you'll find the what's a good way to explain it? The detours and the byways of research, where you're absolutely certain that you're going down the right path, and then this neon light goes blink, blink, blink. Have you considered this? And you investigate that for a little while, and oh, that throws a whole different light on what I'm trying to do. So you've got to be willing to change. You've got to be willing to. You can't go in trying to prove a point. You have to go in finding a point.
That sounds like something Elson said, in that early reading, where he said, look, we have to follow the evidence. You come up with a question, but then you have to surrender everything to the evidence, in a sense. So, but that's terrific. So you obviously, to get to or maybe there's nothing obvious for somebody who's starting the course, but to get to your PhD, you did a really crackingly good honours thesis.
I did. Yes.
Did the
I think so.
could you see a direct line of flight between History 300 and how you approach your?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. History 300 was the mini honours project.
That's right, it was, wasn't it? That's right.
Hmm.
So you were able to actually transfer elements of that into the honours.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
right. I remember now. Yeah.
Yes. In the honours, I looked at the roots of Queensland's populism, and identified key events that shaped Queensland's populism in the colonial period, and it was that reading which started pointing me towards what I'm studying now.
Yeah.
I found gaps in the literature, which is the task, and as a result of both History 100 and the honours. So it's History 100 started me down a path of my own choosing.
Okay, that's great. So last question for you, Tony. What sort of advice would you give to the new students in History 300 this year?
Learn to read and write.
Learn to read and write. That's a little derogatory, Tony. Come on.
No. You must be able to read quickly and
critically, I would say.
Critically, yes, and selectively, and be willing to put a book down or an article down, which can be hard because you might be enjoying it and going, wow, look at that, but does it pertain to what I'm doing? No. Right? And you've got to be able to construct the sentence and construct a paragraph, and know where the commas go, and know where the adjectives go, and when to use strong adjectives and when not to. That's a really essential skill. You don't study history, you read and write history, and so to write it, you have to develop writing skills, and the only way to do that is to write.
Yeah. I would add one other thing there is to actually craft across a piece, whether it's 1,000 or 5,000 words or whatever, a logical line of flight. Yes,
Indeed. Yes.
Do you have any techniques for following the logic across a large piece of writing, Tony?
In the History 100 case, I had a beginning point and an end point, and with my PhD thesis, I have a beginning point and an end point, 1800, 1900. And so those are the parameters.
Yep.
And so how the tapestry was woven between those 2 points is what I'm studying, what I'm researching. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
A pleasure, as ever.
I really appreciate you giving us the time, and I wish you all the best with your continuing honours work, as a PhD work. And I hope to see it either come out as a book or as a series of articles too, Tony, at some point. I think that's...
I'm thinking. I do more thinking than writing at the moment, but
well, that's probably good. I mean, the thinking must come with the writing, but the writing and the thinking, as you've really clearly said, go hand in hand, actually.
Yes. There are potential articles in what I'm doing, and some not obscure, but tangential articles to the theme that I'm following.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to stop the recording now. So,
thank you.